offeree has not sent the acceptance in the prescribed mode, has to send a notice to the offeree that this acceptance will not be valid, and the offeree has to send the acceptance in the prescribed mode. Now, an offer lapses by rejection. The offerer makes an offer and the offeree can reject that offer, and that offer would terminate. So the offer would lapse by way of rejection by the offeree. Then the offer lapses by the death or insanity of the offerer or the offeree before acceptance. If the offeree has not sent the acceptance to the offerer, and the offeree or the offerer, they die during that period, or it may happen that like for example, the offer come to the notice of the offeree. In that case, the offer would be valid, that acceptance would be valid. But if it comes to the knowledge of the offeree that the offerer has become insane, in that case, the acceptance would be void, it would not be valid. So, whether it's death or insanity, that particular whether death or insanity, this particular this has to come to the notice of the other party, otherwise that particular acceptance would be valid. An offer lapses by revocation. Now, revocation is recalling back or terminating that offer. So, if the offerer makes an offer and suppose after making the offer, the offerer, there happens some event where the offerer would not be able to fulfill the offer, the offerer can send the revocation. That means recall that offer, but before the offeree sends the acceptance. If the offeree sends the acceptance, then the acceptance would become valid and the contract would be made. But if the revocation reaches the offeree before the offeree sends the acceptance, in that case, the offer would be recalled and would terminate. So, in case the offerer wants to revoke the offerer has to ascertain that he sends the revocation before the acceptance is mailed by the offeree to the offerer. Then revocation by non-fulfillment of a condition precedent to acceptance. Now, any condition can be attached by the offerer in his offer letter or in his offer that document. Now, like for example, suppose there are students and there's one student who say wants to say fight the students union election. So another student or another leader may give him an offer that I'll give you this much of amount, please step down from the election process and I'll pay you this much amount. So whether it is for say fighting elections or contesting the elections or for abstaining from the elections, any condition can be made. Like for example, if suppose there's a seller who is selling a motorcycle to a student on the condition that if he uh, joins the fray for fighting elections for the post of secretary of the union, then only he will sell his motorcycle for say 50,000 rupees. Now, if this the offeree does not join that election fray, then in that case the offer would lapse, because there's a condition that is attached to the offer that the offeree has to join the election contest, otherwise that offer would lapse. So that particular student will not be able to buy that motorcycle. An offer lapses by subsequent illegality or destruction of the subject or the subject matter. Now, sometimes the government may come up with a rule or with a new law overnight. Suppose at 12 midnight, it may come up with a rule that the sale of timber by private persons is illegal now. They cannot sell. Only the government agencies can sell the timber. So an offer that is made prior to that enactment of that rule would become void, that would become, it would lapse. And second, destruction of the subject matter. Now, destruction of the subject matter means, suppose there is a contract for the sale of certain goods and those goods perish before after the offer is made. So in that case, if those goods they perish, then the offer would lapse. Now this basically, in case of the sale of goods, it applies to those goods which are not commodities, which are special goods, which cannot be bought from the open market. Like for example, if the offer is made for the sale of say wheat, or for the sale of rice, for the sale of cement, for the sale of steel, then in case of the destruction of or the perishing of the quality of wheat, for example, if there is flooding in the go down of the cellar, the wheat may perish, the wheat may become rotten, or the cement, if it's in the go down of that cellar and there's flooding, it may become damp and won't it lose its quality. So in that case, the offer would not lapse. But in certain type of goods, which are special goods, which cannot be bought from the open market, the offer would lapse. Like for example, in case of cement, or in case of commodities, other commodities like grains, wheat, rice, anything, the seller can arrange the rice from the open market. You can purchase that rice and then sell it to the customer. But in case of certain goods, for example, there's an artifact, for example, anything which is which is not available in the open market. So for those goods, for example, there's a model of a car which is not which is a vintage car which is not available in the open market, and the offerer has promised to sell that car to the buyer. Now, this kind of offer would lapse, because now if that car perishes, or it's suppose it catches fire and is destroyed, for example, before the actual sale, so in that case the offer would lapse, because now the owner of that car cannot arrange that particular model of car from the open market, because it's not available in the open market. So for such type of goods which are not commodities, which cannot be arranged from the open market, then that particular product cannot, the offer for that product would lapse. In case of certain goods which are commodities, but spatially they have been identified by the buyer, so they become specific goods. And if those specific goods are destroyed, then in that case, again, the offer would lapse. Like, for example, if a certain model of laptop is selected to be bought by the buyer, and that particular laptop cannot be arranged from the open market, in that case, that that particular offer would lapse, because the seller cannot arrange that laptop from the open market. So in such cases, if certain, even the commodities, like, for example, cement bags that have been identified by the buyer and then are kept in a separate place after identification, again, that those bags, they become, say, destroyed, or they lose their quality, and due to some occurrence of some event. In that case, if those goods perish, the offer would lapse in that case. So for unascertained goods, that means those goods which are commodities, which can be bought from the open market, the offer would not lapse, because the seller can make arrangements from the open market. But in case of ascertained goods or specific goods which cannot be made available from the open market, the offer would lapse. Sorry. Another example can be of, suppose a buyer wants to buy, goes to an orchard, and he identifies the mangoes from a particular tree to be bought after they become ripe. So during that period, the goods are destroyed. There's a storm and it destroys the crop. Now, the owner of the orchard cannot arrange that specific variety from the open market, because the variety that had been identified by the buyer is not available in the open market. In that case, it will become a certain good or specific good, and that specific good cannot be arranged from the open market, and the offer would lapse. So anything that is not clear in this slide, if you need further explanation of any of these points, is everything clear? Okay, so we'll move to the next slide. Legal rules regarding a valid acceptance. Now, acceptance must be given only by the person to whom the offer is made. Now, the offerer makes an offer, and that offer is directed to a specific person, whether it's a company or a particular physical person. So it's in the name of that person, and only that person would send the acceptance. The acceptance cannot be sent by the father of the person to whom the offer is made, or the brother of the person to whom the offer is made. So when the offer is specifically named in the name of a particular person or in the name of a company, then on behalf of the company, the director or any manager can send the acceptance. Or if it's in the name of an individual, then that particular individual will have to send the acceptance, and that only will be valid. Although if the beneficiary of that particular contract, suppose A makes an offer to B, and this particular contract that is being made between A and B is for the benefit of C. So it's only B who will send the acceptance, although that contract may be for the benefit of C, but C cannot send the acceptance on behalf of B. It's only B who has to send the acceptance, and only that acceptance will be valid. Acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. That means there should not be any terms and conditions, extra terms and conditions that would be attached to the acceptance. When the offer is made, there are certain terms and conditions attached to the offer by the offerer. The offeree cannot make any changes in those terms and conditions. Otherwise, this would become a counter offer, and the counter offer will then have to be accepted by the offerer. So this acceptance which is to be made by the offeree has to be absolute. That means all the terms and conditions which have been attached in the offer will have to be accepted by the offeree, and there should not be additional terms and conditions attached in the acceptance. So if suppose in the offer it is made, the offer is made for the suppose sale of certain goods which are to be delivered on a particular date by, say, by any mode of transport, for example, by a truck, for example. This particular offer, the terms and conditions cannot be changed by the offeree, and offeree cannot make an acceptance with an additional remark that the goods should not be transported by a truck, but it should be transported by an auto or by any other means. So there should not be additional terms and conditions attached by the offeree in the acceptance. Then acceptance must be expressed in some usual and reasonable manner unless the proposal prescribes the manner in which it is to be accepted. Reasonable manner is that if suppose the offer is made by post, by speed mail, so reasonable manner would be that the acceptance would also be sent through speed post to the offerer. If it's prescribed by the offerer how the acceptance is to be sent, then in that particular mode, the acceptance would have to be sent by the offerer. Otherwise, it will not be accepted by the offerer. And in case of any deviated type of acceptance that has been sent by the offeree, the offerer can send a notice to the offeree that you have not sent the acceptance through the prescribed mode, and your acceptance would not be valid. Acceptance must be communicated by the acceptor. It has to be communicated. That means the acceptance has to be sent to the offerer. Now, if suppose I get an offer and I just in my mind I accept it, that okay, I have accepted it but I do not send the acceptance to the offerer. In that case, that acceptance would not be valid. It has to be sent. It has to be mailed. Acceptance must be given within a reasonable time and before the offer lapses or is revoked. So within a reasonable time, for example, if no time limit is given in the offer, reasonable time may be 2 or 3 months. But after 1 year or after 6 months, then that offer would lapse. And likewise, if the time is given in the offer, suppose within 15 days, the acceptance has to be dispatched, for example, by the offeree. So in that case, if the acceptance is sent after 15 days, then that offer would lapse in that case. Or if the offerer sends a revocation of the offer, that means he recalls the offer. In that case, again, before the offeree sends the acceptance. So before the offeree sends the acceptance, if the offerer revokes the offer, again in that case the offer would lapse. Acceptance must succeed the offer. That means first the offer has to be made by the offerer, and in response to the offer, the acceptance will then be sent by the offer. Now, it cannot be otherwise. Like, for example, if the buyer needs, say, 10 tons of steel rods of a particular, say, quality and specification, and he sends that acceptance of earlier. Also, he must be, say, buying from that particular seller, so he may send further acceptance. Okay, again I will buy this much. Now this would be an offer. It would not be an acceptance, because unless the offer is received by the offeree cannot send the acceptance. Now, in this case, if the buyer sends a letter to the seller that again I want to say buy this much of steel, then in that case this request would become an offer. This offer would be from the buyer to the seller, and the seller now will have to send the acceptance in response to this offer. Now, rejected offers can be accepted only if renewed. Suppose an offer is made by the seller to the buyer, and the buyer rejects that offer. Later on, the buyer then thinks about that offer, and then within the prescribed term of that offer, that means if the term is given 15 days, within 15 days, he sends the acceptance. Now, once a rejection is mailed by the offeree, then that offer becomes rejected and cannot be renewed. That would not become a contract. So once an offer is sent by the offerer, and in response to that offer, the offeree sends a rejection, the offer lapses. And later on, if the offeree sends the acceptance, then that would not be valid. Now, in such cases, a new offer will have to be made by the offerer, and in response to the new offer, then only the acceptance will be sent by the offeree, and that would be valid. So once rejected, offer is rejected, then it's rejected for all times and cannot be renewed, can be renewed only after new offer is sent by the offerer, and in response to the new offer, then the acceptance is made by the offerer. Yes, anything related to this slide? If there's any point that is not clear, okay. So we'll move to the next slide. Communication of offer, acceptance, and revocation. Now, communication of an offer. The communication of an offer is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the person to whom it's made. Usually the offer is given in the name of some individual or in the name of an organization. And when it comes to the knowledge of the person to whom it is made, the offer, the communication of the offer is complete. Then communication of an acceptance. The communication of the acceptance is complete. Now there are two terms attached to it. Number one, as against the offerer, when it is put into a course of transmission to him so as to be out of the power of the acceptor. Now this is one condition where the acceptance, the communication of the acceptance, which is given by the offeree, it's sent to the offerer. So it's complete when the offeree dispatches that acceptance to the offerer. Now, at this point, I would point out the difference between the common law and the civil law or the code law. In the earlier slides, we had taken up those types of laws. In case of those nations, in this case of those countries which have civil law, which are governed by the civil law or the code law, like for example, France, Germany, or in Russia also, and China and Japan and many of the South American countries, where there is a code law or the civil law in force. In such countries, when the acceptance reaches the offerer, then only the contract is made. But in common law countries, like for example in US, Canada, in Britain, in India, Australia, and many other those nations which have common law, in such nations, when the offeree dispatches the acceptance, the contract is made. So there's a difference between these two types of laws. So now in India, we have the common law in force. So there's a mailbox provision in common law that as soon as the acceptance or any communication is out of the hands of the acceptor or the offeree, that means it has been mailed, the contract is made. So the same, this point that as against the offerer, when it's put into the course of transmission to him so as to be out of the power of the acceptor, that means the mailbox provision, it applies to it. Now why against the offerer? Because now the offerer cannot make a revocation of the offer. So this is why it's given as against the offerer, because now the offerer cannot revoke the offer. That's why it's given as against the offer. Now B, as against the acceptor, when it comes to the knowledge of the offerer, that means when it reaches the offerer, when the acceptance which is put into the course of transmission by the offeree reaches the offerer. So it's against the acceptor, because now the acceptor or the offeree cannot make a revocation of that acceptance, right? So this is the second, this number B, that as against the acceptor, because now the offeree or the acceptor cannot revoke the acceptance, the acceptor has to then fulfill his obligation to the contract. Then communication of a revocation. Revocation, that means recalling back, whether it's the offer or the acceptance. The communication of a revocation is complete as against the person who makes it when it's put into a course of transmission to the person to whom it is made, so as to be out of the power of the person revoking. Like, for example, as against the person who makes it. Like, for example, if the offerer, he sends the revocation to the offeree, and later on, again, he rethinks about that offer, that, okay, had I not revoked that offer, perhaps then I would have benefited from this particular contract. So as against the person who makes it, when it is put into course of transmission to the person to whom it's made, so as to be out of the power of the person revoking. Again, that particular mailbox provision is there, that now once the revocation is sent by the person who wants to revoke, whether it's the acceptance or the offer, it's out of the power. So naturally, now it cannot be stopped by that person. And as against the person to whom it's paid, when it comes to his knowledge. So if suppose the acceptance is not, although sent by the, say, offeree, but before the acceptance reaches the offerer, the offeree sends the revocation by a means by which the revocation reaches the offerer very early, before the acceptance reaches the offerer. So in that case, if the revocation reaches the offerer before the acceptance, then it is against the person to whom it's made. So the offerer would lose that business, because the revocation reaches the offerer before the acceptance of the offer reaches the offerer. Then contracts made over telephone, telex, and email. I mean, in all these cases where we have instantaneous means of communication, whether it's face-to-face, say, offer and acceptance, or made by telephone instantaneously, the contract is made. There cannot be any revocation. Like, for example, if you're face-to-face with the buyer and seller, they are face-to-face with each other. We have less than 1 minute left. So whether it's face-to-face or on telephone, so the offer is made and simultaneously the acceptance is made. So there's no question of revocation in this case. Now, tomorrow, inshallah, we'll take up the next topic, that would be capacity to contract. If there is any query, perhaps I can take up that query for this particular slide before I start with the